Some of them quite remarkable, actually, and unique. So, let's have a little kirtan. Yeah, we're getting here. This is broken. Well, this is a very interesting harmonium. This is a huge society for Krishna consciousness, and the harmonium is 10th class, if at all. It's not possible to play it. Nobody played kirtan here before? Please relieve me. We have to keep it simple. I would have loved to have a kirtan. That's what I'm doing. I used to sing for Prabhupada, actually, in his last 3 weeks of his life. Not just an hour or 10, but 6 hours every day. That's a lot of singing. Most of the time I was alone with Prabhupada in his room. It was very awesome, very beautiful to have that opportunity to sing for Prabhupada alone. Yeah, mostly I was alone with him in the room down there. So let me tell you something of my direct experience. I like our visit to Sweden. We went to Sweden with Prabhupada and Germany. In Germany I was his translator also, and so I invited all kinds of personalities to talk to Prabhupada, big people. There was one Professor Durkheim. He's world famous. He brought Zen Buddhism to the Western world. He's a professor from a very old, ancient, aristocratic line. His ancestors have a huge castle. He's immensely decorated by the German government. He was ambassador of Germany in the wartime to Japan, and he was extremely learned and intelligent man. I know this because I asked him to solve some riddles that nobody of my friends, even the GBC, was able to solve. One particular riddle. I've forgotten what it is. 77, don't ask me what that riddle is. But he said, give me time. It took 2 minutes, he had it. He was 72 years old. Prabhupada was 72 at that time. So very intelligent man, very clever. And so Prabhupada always asked this question, whoever would meet, what is your philosophy? That's Prabhupada's first question, because otherwise, sometimes a young bhakta preaches to somebody for an hour, and then he said, did you understand? And the boy will say, no English. So we have to understand who we are talking to. That's very important. And Prabhupada always asks this question first, you know. Just like somebody asked Prabhupada, do you know the Satya Sai Baba from Bengal down there? And Prabhupada, I never heard of him, which is of course funny. What is his philosophy? He said, well, he says he's God. Oh, Prabhupada said, I would like to have a picture of God. Have you a picture? He said, yes. Prabhupada, that's not God. God is very beautiful. This is an ugly old man. God is always young. Navayo Advaita Matsuttamana is always young. You can forget about this God. So Prabhupada's initial question cleared everything. So we asked Professor Durkheim, what's your philosophy? And Durkheim explained Zen Buddhist philosophy, or Buddhist philosophy. Zen Buddhism is part of Buddhism. And so Buddhists believe in reincarnation, right? Christians not, Muslims not, Jews not, but Buddhists do. And so Prabhupada said, when you transfer into another body, what transfers? What is it? And he said, the mind. And Prabhupada said, that's true. Yam yam apam vapismaram bhavam tyajate antakalivaram. Tam tam, the mind goes up. Prabhupada said, what else? He said, that's it, it's the mind. And Prabhupada said, the mind is just one part of a three-wheeler. It's like a three-wheeler. There's mind, there's Manasarira, Buddhisarira, and Anahankara, as far as the subtle body is concerned. Because the gross body, both agree they lie down and are finished. So he didn't know that. In Buddhism, there's no concept really of soul. That's the point, you know. So Prabhupada said, that's just the vehicle, the subtle vehicle, Linga Sarira. But then there's a passenger. Who's the passenger in this vehicle? The professor was puzzled. Prabhupada said, that's you. And he said, who's the driver of the three-wheeler? Who drives it? The super soul, Krishna. You know, so we have a very defined understanding of soul in Krishna consciousness that you won't find outside of Vedic knowledge. There's no knowledge, basically speaking. Consequently, in Christian religion or Muslim religion or Jewish religion, people cannot understand why the innocent suffer. They can't understand it. Why does God, who knows everything, who is everywhere, who has all the power to change everything at will at every second, why does the innocent suffer? Why do they suffer? Our answer is very simple, because they're not innocent, not even a child. Because we can understand that this life is just a succession of a previous existence of which there is no knowledge in neither Muslim religion, nor Christian religion, nor Jewish religion. They don't have that knowledge, you know. The beginning of knowledge is Aham Brahmasmi. The first thing Vedanta Sutra explains. The first thing, I'm a soul, I'm a spirit. There is no knowledge. And so, as an example, when there was an earthquake in Japan a couple of years ago, tsunami, a 70-year-old girl called, there was a teleconference, some sort of a huge Zoom conference, the Pope, and asked him, all my friends are dead. Why does God allow this? And the Pope said, I have the same question, and we don't have the answer. The answer that in India every rickshawala has, basically speaking. Isn't it? You know, it's so common sense in India, but in Western countries, common sense is not very common. That's the point, you know, because even big philosophers, they don't come to this understanding of soul. What is soul? So Prabhupada explained to him in detail the function of the soul. It's eternal, it's an expansion of Krishna, etc., etc. So this man, we were all young boys, you know, girls, we were 25 years old, 30 of us sitting around Prabhupada, and the man got up and paid a complete dandavat to Prabhupada, holding his foot. And he said, Swamiji, please accept me as your follower. And when I brought him back to the railway station in Frankfurt, he said, Pritha, Prabhu, I've met many gurus, sannyasis, mahants, the Pope, sadhus. I've met everybody and anybody. I never met anybody that comes close to your spiritual master. He said he's on a different, he's on the other, he's outside. He's outside of material consciousness. He's completely transcendental. And anybody who talked to Prabhupada sooner or later came to this conclusion that Prabhupada was huge. He was the greatest man, but at the same time very humble. And I give you an example of that. We went to Uppsala University in Sweden, which is a very leftist, Naxalite, Leninist, Stalinist, Maoist, anarchist, everything left. Student community. There are no conservative people there. And although these are all different groups that disagree with each other in many little issues, but the one common denominator is classless society. Right? That's a common denominator of Marxists, Leninists, anybody, Maoists, classless. So Prabhupada looked over the spectacles when he sang, and I sat right there. I arranged this Vyasa-san, and so he looked over his spectacles and studied the crowd. Nobody told him who was the crowd. Even I was not aware of it because we just went to the university. And so Prabhupada said, so Chaturvana Mahashishtam, there are 4 classes of men. He talked about first class men, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. And he said, without 4 classes of men, division of society cannot work. And he goes on and on and on and on and on. And people were, I was surprised, I wouldn't have been surprised if somebody would throw a pie at Prabhupada. They were so angry, So finally one guy stood up and said, of course, Swami, he stood up. You think you're first class, of course. You're sitting on a high seat, surrounded by followers, everybody goes down, covered with flowers. He screamed, are you first class? My blood was boiling. I would have loved to knock his teeth out right on the spot, I'm coming from Germany. And Prabhupada said, no. He said, no. You misunderstand me. He said, I'm not first class at all. Then he said, I'm actually 5th class. And dead silence in the room. And then Prabhupada said, and I saw 2 big tears came down his cheeks. He said, because I'm the servant of everyone. It was so beautiful, And although he was definitely the first class man, he took a position of a 5th class man. I'm the servant of everyone. And that was the greatness of Prabhupada. It came through. He was so emotional, and 2 tears came down his cheeks. I could see it because I was sitting right there. It was one of the awesome Prabhupada moments that I experienced in my life, where you see his nature shining, It's the most humble of all. And so then he talked to one Christian person. He was a Christian monk. And he was a humble person. He was a humble monk. He was not puffed up at all. And Prabhupada, he was fingering some beads in his hand, and Prabhupada said, what are you praying on? And he said, I'm praying the Jesus prayer. Prabhupada said, what does it mean? Yes, we said, Jesus, Lord, Son of God, please help me. Something like that. And Prabhupada said, well, that's very nice. That's a nice prayer. He said, that is very nice. You try to remember. How long you try to chant every day? He said, I try to chant all day, focusing my mind on Jesus. And Prabhupada didn't try to convert him, because he understands that this is a pious soul, an extraordinary pious soul, who's just focusing on Jesus. And then Prabhupada said, you see, Christ and Krishna, there's a etymological connection there. They're one in the spirit. One is the Father, one is the Son, And so what you're doing there is very nice. Are you a vegetarian? He said, yes, I'm a vegetarian. Prabhupada said, keep on doing this. A very short discussion, but Prabhupada, in the next days they would talk about the chanting of the names of God, So Prabhupada was so gentle at the same time. Next picture. There was a professor, 2 doctor titles, Dr. Porsche. He was a Jesuit, Catholic Jesuit from the University of Frankfurt. And so I used to be a student. I studied comparative religion, so I had access to people like that. My professor was a famous man, Professor Mensching, in Frankfurt, in Bonn. And so Prabhupada said, I'm very happy that you came, Professor Porsche. What is your philosophy? Standard question. And he said, well, Jesus died for our sins and nobody comes to the Father but through me, and all the things I've heard from childhood on. The same dogmatic kind of philosophy. And Prabhupada listened afterwards. Sometimes Prabhupada yawned, and the professor said, Swamiji, what do you think? And Prabhupada didn't say a thing. We were all waiting, we were sitting there, dead silence in the room, waiting for Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada opened his mouth and it was like a rumbling cloud. He said, 2,000 years have passed. Prabhupada said, and still you don't understand Jesus. Professor said, Swami, why you say that? He said, Prabhupada said, if you understand Jesus, you can understand Krishna. If you understand Krishna, you understand Jesus. Right? If you say you love Jesus, you must love also Krishna, because Jesus says, love your Lord. He didn't say, love me. And if you love Krishna, automatically, you love Jesus. He said, and if you say you want to love Jesus only, not Krishna, that means you have no knowledge. That's the cutting point, the real cutting point. You have no knowledge. Prabhupada told him, because that's a fact. There's a great lack of deep understanding, beginning with who are we. If you remember from Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first question Sanatana Goswami asked Lord Chaitanya, Ke ami? Who am I? Before he asked why I'm suffering. So before Ke ami is answered, who I am, I cannot understand why we suffer. We cannot, because the cause of the suffering lies in the previous life. You see the point? We cannot understand. And so it's surprising to me that people who are professors of astrophysics, their whole life is logic, reason, argument, but when it comes to religion, they apparently leave their brain in the parking lot. They just suspend their intellectual faculties to ask a reasonable question. Religion has to be reasonable, right? And Krishna consciousness is very reasonable. That's why I came to the movement. I was born a Christian and very Christian family, super Orthodox family. But when my little brother died with 7 years, I asked that question. I was only 10, and I asked the priest, why does God allow that? What has he done? He said, he has not done anything. He said, then why is he suffering? I don't know. And I told this man, I was only 10, I said, that means there's no God. Everything is just accident. Somebody has everything, somebody has nothing, somebody is poor, somebody is rich, somebody is fat, somebody is skinny, somebody is intelligent, somebody is dumb. It's all by chance, accident. Right? If you don't have knowledge, if you cannot see that whatever we do right now is, practically speaking, a replay of a past life, all the reactions come under Krishna's control. Kamana Devanitina, under my control, Krishna says. Everybody suffers who enjoys his karma. So there is no knowledge, really, which is surprising. In all these years, they don't ask the right questions that I asked with 10 years, basically speaking, Where's the logic in all this? That he is a being which is benign. God is benign. Everybody believes that. He's a kind person. He knows everything. In other words, he's omniscient. He's omnipresent. He is everywhere. And he's omnipotent. He's all-powerful. And he just sits there and sees the suffering of the world where people suffer without a reason. Does it make sense? It doesn't make sense to me. You see? So there's a huge amount of preaching to be done just on the basis that we have a philosophy. If you don't understand Aham Brahmasmi, you have no knowledge. You cannot understand anything about the soul, about our real being. You cannot. That's the first point, Aham Brahmasmi. That's why the first question is, what is this verse? Brahma Vijnana, what is that verse? Huh? Atatu Brahma Jignana. In our culture, in our Western culture, in Greek, they had this knowledge. It says in the Delphi temple, you can still see the temple. It's an old temple, you see the columns inscribed in the wall, Gnoti Sahutum, means realize yourself. So it's there. And when our Julius Caesar, the Roman emperor, when he came and fight with the Gauls in Western history, that's AD maybe 70, 80 something. He said about this in his book, De Bello Gallico. He said, the Druids, these people believe that the soul can take any form, that the soul goes from one body to another. And there's a soul. So he was surprised, otherwise why should he write it, that they actually have this knowledge, because that's the Vedic culture that has been all over the world. And then it was pushed into an underground, into the underground, by less informed or less developed spiritual congregations. You know, it was pushed into the ground. But that knowledge is there, and that knowledge explains everything. Like Prabhupada, Krishna says, when one is enlightened by knowledge, with the knowledge by which nations are destroyed, his knowledge reveals everything. As the sun reveals everything in the daytime. That's the verse right there, you know? So knowledge, it's all about knowledge. And Prabhupada taught this very beautiful, you know? So this professor was also, he was awestruck. He never saw it in these terms, you know? And then there's another case. This is actually a really amazing case that I was asked by Prabhupada's servant to organize these meetings for Prabhupada when he comes to Germany, and there's a professor, Heidegger. If you study philosophy anywhere in the world, you have to study Heidegger. He's the tower of the last century of philosophy. You know, it's a beacon of light. He wrote a book, Sein und Zeit, Being and Time. And he, before he left, in his last days, he said, only God can help us, you know. So I went to Freiburg to see him, found out in the university, in the philosophical department where he was, a super famous man, Professor Heidegger. And he lives there and there. So I went, I rang the bell, an elderly woman comes out, and said, oh, you look very different, she said. My daughter shaved head and tilak, she looked very different. I said, relax, I said to her, I'm following an East Asian tradition. I'm a monk, actually. He said, and then? He said, I would like to see that I can talk to your husband because my guru wants to speak. She said, young man, it is too late. He said, why? Is he expired? And no, he's upstairs. I said, and then? He doesn't understand anything anymore. You know, he was at the end of his life. And I said, so he won't complain when I see him, isn't it? And she said, you're right in that. She laughed, you know. So I went there. Now listen to this. She said at the feet, I said at his side. And I said, Professor Heidegger, can you hear me? He said, nothing, you know. Professor Heidegger, can you hear me? Nothing. So I took Prabhupada's Bhagavad-Gita and touched his hand. Immediately the hands opened and grabbed the book. He lifted up the book, his eyes opened. His wife was in a shock. His eyes opened and said, Bhagavad-Gita, Bhagavad-Gita, I know this book. And he started crying. I know this book, and pressed it to his back and fell back into coma. And his wife said, how did you do that? I've not seen him like this in 5 years. Prabhupada's mercy. He brought him back to life, practically speaking, for a moment of clarity, you know. She could not understand. I said, well, how did he do? I said, I don't understand either. You know, I knew it was Prabhupada's mercy at work, you know. So you see that how incredible, powerful Prabhupada was, that he was able to do that. That this man was 5 years before he was already gone, practically speaking, his mind was gone. You know, and he was in the dark well, practically speaking. He died shortly after that. So you see Prabhupada's wonderful influence on people. How did Prabhupada do that? What is the secret? What is the secret? Prabhupada's secret was complete dependency on Krishna. You know, he did this best. Dependency doesn't mean you don't do anything. Prabhupada worked like anything. You know, we have to do our best. And then Krishna's mercy comes in. This is how that works, you know, that we have to, it's a cooperation. You know, one time there was a situation that our Satsvarup Maharaj was running Boston Temple and they had no money. They came to the end of their money, so whatever money they had, they used all this money to decorate the altar very beautifully with flowers and send a picture to Prabhupada. Prabhupada called them and said, how? You have so much money that you can afford to decorate the altar like this, and said, we don't have money. Prabhupada said, then, he said, we thought we took all the money we have and decorate Krishna, and now he has to take care of us. We are completely dependent on him. And so Prabhupada said, depending on Krishna is very nice, but you have to do the work. And then Krishna will help you. That's the idea, by Krishna's mercy. Matsita Sarva Durgani, if you direct your mind towards me, like in chanting, conscious chanting, good chanting, you direct your mind towards Krishna. Sarva Durgani, all difficulties that come from material nature, from Durga, Sarva Durgani, by mat prasadam tarishyasi, by my mercy will be destroyed. This is the technology. This is actually the spiritual technology, how we get things done. We have to do the best, and then Krishna, he does it. Arjuna fought like anything. And by the mercy of Krishna, he could do so much. He was empowered. Krishna Shakti Vijana Vinanata Pravatana. Being empowered by Krishna, one can preach like anything. And without that mercy, we can't do anything. We can do, but it will not be successful. And there's this discussion between, I think in the Sri Sampradaya, in the 17th century, about the cat, the example of the cat and the monkey. The kitten doesn't have to do anything. The cat carries him around. So the idea that I just depend on Krishna, it doesn't work. The other one is like the monkey. The little monkey holds on to the mother strongly, and then the mother can carry him from one place to another. That's our philosophy. That we have to. Mother Yashoda tried to bind Krishna, and she worked hard. She labored very hard, and she couldn't reach him. But then, because she worked very hard, Krishna then allowed himself to be caught by her. The rope was always 2 fingers too short. One finger is our endeavor, and the other finger is Krishna's mercy. When these 2 things come together, then things. You see the coward boys and his friends, they never would try even to save themselves. They just cried from the bottom of their heart for Krishna's help, and then Krishna would come and kill the demon before breakfast, practically speaking. So that's the whole philosophy that we have to do. It's not that we just stand there and say, my dear Lord, please send me your mercy. I'm waiting. Doesn't work. We have to use our brains and our abilities. Everybody has some ability. What can I do for Krishna with the facilities I've been given by material nature and by the grace of God? Well, how can I do that? What can I do? That's the idea. And so everybody has some talents, of us. And you should use these talents in Krishna's service. That is the idea, Everybody is very different, Whatever capacity we have, that we should use for Krishna. In this way we become purified from material affinity. And this principle works in all spheres of life, in Krishna consciousness. That we have to do our best, then Krishna, he will do. And Prabhupada worked like this. Prabhupada suffered tremendously before he came to the West. I was telling the other day in the temple room that he was lying in winter in Radha Damodar temple on a straw mat that you can roll, this little thin, and he had high fever. And his godbrothers came, 2 godbrothers came and said, you have to get a bed, otherwise you die. In the middle of winter, January, it's really cold here, on the floor. And Prabhupada said, no, I won't do that. He said, why not? I want to use every paisa for book distribution. Just see the degree of renunciation in Prabhupada, That degree of sacrifice for Krishna, He was living before that, before Radha Damodar, he was living in Kesighat. When you go to Kesighat, here's the Yamuna, there's these hollows, these holes there without windows. That's where he stayed first, because he had no money when he came. His business failed. So he suffered a lot, in the heat of Delhi distributing books. Enormous difficulties. And but he was not alone. He had firm faith in the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. And we can have that faith too. There was a girl, famous jazz musician, her name is Alice Coltrane. She saw Prabhupada in his room downstairs. And she said, Prabhupada, my life, Swamiji, my life is full of problems. I have so many problems. This anxiety, this problem, that problem. I mean, unlimited or litany of problems. And Prabhupada said, Alice, you just chant. Chant, chant, chant. And everything will be revealed to you by Krishna in due course of time. That's the idea. So we have to chant. And then Krishna will help us. This is the technology. In the material mind, we try to solve everything ourselves. I mean, the whole material civilization means problem solving. There are problems, we try to solve them this way, that way, this way, that way. And in this way, we open one bottle after the other. And when Prabhupada, in his last days, I stood right beside his bed. He asked for medicine. He had some need for medicine, and he asked his servant, can you give me medicine? He said, yes. So gave him. Prabhupada said, but did you close the bottle? Because, he was a medical man before. He was very careful to open the bottle, take the pill out into a tray and close the bottle. Otherwise you may knock the bottle over. So he said, did you close the bottle? He said, no, Prabhupada, I forgot. And Prabhupada, that is your disease, he said, all of you. You know how to open bottles, but you don't know how to close them. You start so many new things, and you don't see the consequences. And it's you can see this phenomena all over the world, devotees opening bottles, and they don't see the consequences, that it has in the long run, He said, you know how to live, but you don't know how to die. And so therefore I have to show you how to die. And then he called Yaduba to make that film that you're aware of. This is a sequence, how that actually developed, opening bottles. Look at modern society, opening this bottle, that. Now we have environmental pollution. The water is polluted, the ocean is polluted, food is polluted, air is polluted, earth is polluted, everything is polluted. What is it? Opening bottle. Let's try this one, let's try that one, that. Rather than standing on the platform of Vedic knowledge and take whatever we are given according to Vedic knowledge, and not opening bottles and going into areas we're not aware whether this is going to be successful or whether this may be devastating for the future. And you see, the right way is we turn to Krishna. When Prabhupada installed the Krishna Balaram deities here, he said, now you can go to Balaram. He said, he sorts you out. He will help you. Don't try to solve your own problems, by trickery, by invention, by this or that or that or that. It doesn't work. We have to follow, And so Prabhupada was teaching that in his own life. That's why he became such a huge influence. I remember one time I was sitting in San Francisco. I was running the temple there. It's a long time ago. And so in Carl Street and next to Golden Gate Park. And it was a couple hundred yards from there to the hill where Prabhupada was singing Hare Krishna mantra in the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement in San Francisco. And so I was sitting there in the morning and chanted my rounds right in front of this hill, the famous hill, and an old man came, an old black man, and he pushed a shopping cart from a shopping center. All his belongings are in there. He was obviously homeless, a homeless man, So he stopped and looked at me for a moment, I was getting worried almost, and he looked at me and said to me, that fellow who started this Hare Krishna, he said, this fellow was a cool cat, which is the highest praise in in the black American community. He was the coolest. I came out like this. He was a cool cat. He said, I was living with him in the Bowery in New York. The house was a complete mess. And he lived there with us together in a broken house. He said, but, his eyes came open. He said, but, he said, Jesus was born in a barn. And he walked away. It was very, very beautiful that he saw the connection, he saw the connection. That God appears in prison, God appears in a barn. And Prabhupada was living in a broken house in not Hoboken, in New York. So he was extraordinary. He was, from the moment I saw Prabhupada, it was in Amsterdam. I was there the day I came by plane from Germany, and at that time the EU was not there. You had to go through through passport control, like it was all separate. So I went through there. So when we came to the airport next day, the boys were chanting Hare Krishna at the belt, where the suitcases came out, and I ran upstairs because I knew Prabhupada was going to come right through this door. And so I went there and I saw Prabhupada, and immediately lifted up his hand like this, and I clicked the button of my little camera. I still have that picture, that was my first moment. There was nobody behind me, there was nobody left and right. It was my personal, private moment with Prabhupada. And it was funny, this beautiful smile, And then he went down into the VIP room. There were some journalists and they asked questions. And the thing with Prabhupada's, I could hardly understand his tapes because it's a Bengali English, There are many birds in the trees. What is a bird, Bird, right? Birds, And so many other words I could not. So I understood maybe 70%. So then he was asked by reporters, I was listening. I could understand every single word. So I went back to the tape I listened in 2 in the morning before we went to the airport. We understood 70%. I could understand now every single word on this, and from that moment on, I could understand everything Prabhupada would say. I could. It was one of these little miracles he would do. And we were doing book distribution. We worked like dogs for Prabhupada. Make no mistakes. 60, 70, 80 Bhagavatams every day, I had 25 Bhagavatams in the back, and I had 15 here. That's 50 together, 30 or 40 together Bhagavatams. And they were gone by 11 o'clock in the morning. You have to really work hard to do that. But Krishna helps you. Krishna helps you. And so we were invited. He wanted to see us because we were doing big. And so he asked this question. He said, my question to you is, what is the most important verse of all? And some other super soul inspired me. And I said, Srila Prabhupada, Yarade Gata Ka Krishna Upadesh. Wherever you go, you preach. Prabhupada, that is the right verse. That's the right verse right there, And we should keep this in mind, we should preach wherever you go. There are some ways to preach to people. Even if some people sometimes are obnoxious, there's a way to get to their heart, You should never stop preaching and use every opportunity there is, And I remember one time I was sat in a train in Ireland. I was preaching in Ireland a long time, complete Catholic country. And I sat in a train alone in the compartment. So an old man came in, he was a Catholic, and he said, I was chanting, he said, what are you doing there? Son, what are you doing? I said, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Krishna, what does it mean? I said, Krishna is God. He said, you must forget this. He said, Jesus died for your sins. Turn to Jesus and you will be saved, And I understood there was no scope to argue with him. So Krishna gave me the idea, said, Father, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Do you believe in that? He said, of course, I'm a Christian. He said, do you practice this? He said, yes, everywhere. He said, yes. I said, well, let me ask one question. How much money do you have in your pocket? He He said, no, what does it have to do with our discussion? I said, it's a simple question, how much money in your pocket? Open up your wallet. He said, 100. I said, love your neighbor as yourself means 50-50. You have to give me 50 euros, otherwise your faith is not very strong. Are you practicing what you're preaching? He said, hold on a minute. He said, are you practicing what you're preaching? This is my question. If you practice, you have to. I'm asking you, give me $50. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love me. He said, I think you're right, he said. And he gave me 50. That was good preaching. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita, we should not disturb the mind of the ignorant, but we should engage in the spirit of devotion. It's right there, right, in Bhagavad-Gita. So we can preach under all circumstances. This was very successful. For the men, it was huge. I mean, he gave 50 to Krishna, Immediately men, at the time of death, it's becoming huge, huge benefit. So we should try and save as many people as possible, wherever we go. And we find people. If you have to ask Krishna, please allow me to help people to become Krishna conscious. You have to ask Krishna for that. Give me an opportunity, and you will find Krishna will send you. If you offer yourself up, you ask the humble prayer, please Lord, let me preach for you, let me do something for you, let me find somebody to preach to. Krishna will send you. He always does, So we should think about that, how in my old age, I mean, I'm not exactly young, my body is 77 years old. I think about preaching. I'm running around preaching all over, right? Last summer I ran all over Europe. And so what can I do? How can I preach? The internet is a fantastic opportunity to preach. I know one Russian boy is only 18 years old. He has something like 3,000-4,000 Russians listening to him on the whatever it is, telegraph or telegram or something. He's preaching, And Prabhupada wanted that. He wanted us to preach because whoever preaches, he has life, And so there are many stories in this regard, how Prabhupada preached and preached and preached and preached, and there was his mission, and we should try to be helping him in his mission and not become diverted by other kind of ideas. There's so many ideas. Actually, Prabhupada's opinion is final. No other opinion is allowed, actually, if we are followers of Prabhupada, And so preaching doesn't mean public relation. It means to give people Krishna, whether they like it or not. That's the idea. And so I remember one time I was managing the preaching there, the festival, Prabhupada festival, and had a board with all the devotees on little magnetic strips, So I had daily department, kitchen department, Sankirtan, Harinam, everything was there. And so I could take a devotee from here to there, and managing like this, the manpower, discussing with devotees, could we do that? And then move people around. So Prabhupada stood behind me. I was not aware of it. I was standing on my board. And I said, oh, Prabhupada, please accept my obeisance. He said, what is this? I said, Srila Prabhupada, this is all the devotees are here. And he said, and then what do you do? I said, I can take a devotee from here to there, from this department, that. He said, now how does that work? I said, it's magnetic. So, magnetic. Can I try magnetic management? I said, yes, Prabhupada. So he took this person from here to there, sent about 5 people around, and he looked at me and said, and this will fail 100%. He said, this will fail 100%. He said, unless there's love and trust between the devotees. Unless there's love and trust, it cannot work. So it's an important thing to understand. There has to be love and trust between the devotees, and people forget that sometimes, We're supposed to be a family and have family relationships and appreciate anybody who comes to the temple and practices Krishna consciousness. They're special, no doubt about it. I mean, Where are all their friends from kindergarten? I mean, you went to kindergarten. Who's here? From all your friends from kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, high school, university, who's here? Not one. And everyone you can ask the same question. They're all gone, but you are here. And that's very special. Brahmana Brahminikona Bhagavan Jiva. We have gone all over the universe, but some other, when we become fortunate, Bhagavan Jiva, when the soul becomes fortunate, then she meets the spiritual master. She meets Srila Prabhupada and his followers. So we're very fortunate that somebody can be here. That's a big thing. And then turning to Krishna and try to please him, that's another big thing. Everything will come from there. If we are able to please Krishna, then all our problems are peanuts. They're little, they're just become insignificant. They may be overwhelming if we don't focus on Krishna. But if we do focus on Krishna, they become insignificant. Krishna solves those problems, Okay. And Prabhupada went to any extent. I remember we were sitting together with the Indian ambassador to Sweden. And the professor, the ambassador said, Swamiji, I have one problem. Prabhupada, I cannot give up drinking wine. And Prabhupada said, it's easy, just give it up. All these boys, have you given up drinking? Yeah, it's easy. Swamiji, I cannot give up drinking wine. I tried so many times. And Prabhupada said, if you cannot give it up, then you should just think, when you drink wine, Krishna is a taste in wine. So at least he got him to think about Krishna. In this way, progress in spiritual life. Prabhupada was so gentle, I remember we went to one meeting our temple was in Frankfurt. In Frankfurt, all the rich people live. Really rich people, like the Rothschild family comes from there, the world famous money, one of the big money families in the world. In fact, we got from Mrs. Rothschild, it took some preaching, this castle that we lived in as devotees. And so when we came, we had in Bad Homburg, all the financial aristocracy lives there. The whole car park was full of Mercedes and BMW, Rolls Royce, and there were tremendous people there that came. It was not small time, And so Prabhupada came in. I was walking right beside him, and the Duta was there. And Prabhupada said, you take my asana out. The asana, there was a big asana on the stage. You take that out. He said, but Prabhupada, we put this there for you. No, give me a chair. So Prabhupada came in and sat on a chair, and people started clapping. They appreciated that. And he would sit on a chair. And he lectured, and people were over the moon that he was a humble man, a very humble person. He said, I want to sit on a chair in front of these people. These are big people. I don't want to sit on a Vyasa-san in front of them. They cannot understand that they become jealous, So Prabhupada would go to any extent, to tie people in. And he knew when it was worth and it was not. Like one time in Amsterdam, we were preaching, we were inviting people into a hotel room, big, right at the Queen's Palace on the other side. And when Prabhupada, just before Prabhupada came there, the place was empty. And so I went out with two other devotees, and there was a huge amount of hippies sitting on the Dam Square on this roundabout. And you should understand, when we talk about hippies, it's a segregated society. There are people who are Sudreich, and there are people who are from the university, who are philosophically minded, who are looking for truth, etc. It's a very segregated society. The students were one group, and then the other one. And you see most of our GBC come from that group, from the students who left in disgust Western society and Western education system, because we saw it doesn't give us anything in terms of truth. And so I invited all the ragtag people, They got all up and said, Swami from India has arrived, there will be unlimited food, they will be singing and dancing, and please come right away. Immediately the spontaneous stood up and the whole room was full, big room. 300, 400 people. So Prabhupada was, had his spectacles on and chanting, like this, looking at the people, and this bizarre crowd of youngsters. And so then Prabhupada started laughing. And he said, these people cannot understand anything. He said, you just feed the prasadam, have kirtan, I'm going. And he left. Because he understood there's no use, how can you speak philosophy when people are bombed out with drugs, no use, So he understood, I'm wasting my time, Yet all the time for intelligent people, and you can see that his preaching was in America mostly to universities, And he told us in Germany, if you don't get university students, this movement cannot develop. He said, it cannot develop. We have to have university students. So I'm very happy in India to see that. There's this huge rise of university students. And Prabhupada in the beginning, he traveled with Mahamsa. He was a Parsi, right? Parsi, from a rich Parsi family in Bombay. They originally come from Iran, right? Tata, Bila, they're all Parsis. And so he went to university in Montreal, and he was educated, and Prabhupada liked to talk to him because he had a full insight in the chemistry of Western countries. And so Prabhupada told him that actually now I brought the Western people to India, really India is waking up. And he said, when India wakes up, he said, it is a sleeping giant. It's a sleeping giant. He said, it will go from India, Lord Chaitanya's request to go all over the world. When one is born in India will come true. And that's what's happening. The movement went from India. Prabhupada couldn't do a thing. He went to the West and he came back with the white dancing elephants and of course the rupas. It was unheard of, Western people taking to Vaishnava philosophy, singing and dancing Hare Krishna. And all the money came, we collected a lot of money for this temple or that temple, all the money came from the West initially, And then gradually it started happening in India. Now we have the movement in India is just incredible. I talked to one boy recently in Mayapur. He said, Pritha, you talked to me in IIT Kanpur. I was just a kid, I was 18 years. And I couldn't get it out of my head, he said, what you told me. So I now he's a temple president in Mangalore. He said, in the middle of the COVID, we couldn't leave the temple, nor could anybody come to the temple. So we designed a very sophisticated, logical Bhagavad-Gita program for students on the internet. And we advertised it on TikTok and Facebook and whatever, all over. And he said, to our surprise, after 3 months we had 10,000 students. He said, now, after 3 years, he told me in spring in Mayapur, he said, after 3 years I have 880,000 students taking this course in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. 880,000 students. That's big time, Huge influence on Indian society. It's only increasing. So there was this group of Indian gentlemen that came and see Prabhupada in 1969 or even maybe 70 in Bombay. And Mahamsa was there. Prabhu, he was at GBC at that time for Hyderabad, Andhra and Madhya Pradesh. And so they asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, we have one request. You're getting old, you have to assign a successor. And Prabhupada said, I will not do that. My Guru Maharaj also didn't do that. He said, no, it's not necessary. He said, if you don't assign a successor, they said, then your movement is 100% finished. And Prabhupada said, you are 100% wrong. He said, this is not Chaitanya's movement. It's a movement of God. It will be 100% successful. He said many difficult things will be there naturally. These are all young boys, he said, and girls. Many difficulties will be there. But in the long run, this movement will be 100% successful. Because it's Krishna's desire, That's what it is. We can have very good hope. The movement was it comes out of a discussion between Lord Krishna and Ganga Devi, as described in Brahma-vivata Purana. And Ganga Devi, she was crying that Krishna was leaving for the spiritual world 5,000 years ago. And he said to her, Mataji, don't worry. He said, there's a plan B. There will be chanting of Hare Krishna mantra all over the world. And the people will read Bhagavatam all over the world. And people will start offering their food all over the world. And this will go on for 10,000 years. This whole thing comes out of this discussion, And so Krishna didn't leave it with that. He came himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya to actually put this into action, this plan. And from there it went. Because Krishna's plan will be successful. Satyameva Jayate. Wherever there's Krishna, there's victory. And so Prabhupada knew this movement is going to be victorious. When his spiritual master, our time is running out, huh? Yeah, when his spiritual master, he told Bhaktisiddhanta, had all his disciples around him, he said, Sridhar Swami told us, he said, one of you is going to go and preach Krishna consciousness all over the world. And he looked at Prabhupada. Sridhar Swami was sitting beside Prabhupada, and he saw, and they made eye contact for a moment. He knew that Prabhupada would do that. And he did it. He did it. To be with Prabhupada was amazing, One time, one devotee, Vrindavan, we were walking over the fields in Bhakti-yoga Mena. It's the very early days. And there was a sign on the street in the fields. Prabhupada said, what is that? And Vrindavan said, Srila Prabhupada, I think. And Prabhupada said, don't do that. He said, it's not a matter what you think, what do you know? Do you know what it is? I said, no, really. Prabhupada said, what is the use of that? I mean, only Prabhupada could be so quick. Don't think, don't do that, because, mental speculation. So this is all I wanted to say, just to give you a little bit of the experience I had with Prabhupada. It's some of it I remember. There's more, but I can't remember it right now. And do you have any questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that in the beginning part, you mentioned that how we need to put our endeavor and then there will be mercy from Krishna's side. We need to do our best. I think somewhere in between you also mentioned that we have to focus on Krishna. If we don't focus on Krishna, nothing will happen. So how do we continue to focus on Krishna, and at the same time, if we have to solve a problem, how much do we endeavor?
Yeah, you see, the chanting is the key. Prabhupada said, good japa is 90% of our progress in Krishna consciousness. The whole thing is what kind of japa we're chanting. Where's our mind? At the time of japa we have to focus, And I personally like Burjan Prabhu's approach. He said you have to chant one mantra at a time. One mantra. You can focus on one mantra. You can't focus on 10 mantras. Your mind is going here. For one mantra at a time. It's a very profound way of chanting. And from there everything flows. You'll be surprised, Good chanting is the mother of all changes, It's the mother of all changes. So everything will flow from there, almost automatically. Because Krishna wants us to be successful. He wants this movement to succeed. So we are already on board. Prabhupada said, practically speaking, I gave you a ticket, Prabhupada says, but we have to work for the visa, so that's what we have to do. I wish you all the best for your spiritual life. God loves you already. Try to serve this movement, make this movement successful. It's in your hands, and put your energy into this, and you will never be the loser. I'm doing this now since 51 years, and that's a good bit of the majority of my life, actually. And there's no secret to stay. If you ask me, how come you're still in Krishna consciousness after 51 years? What is the answer? The answer is I just never left. It's as simple as that. You have to keep on going, chanting, serving Krishna, eating prasadam, having kirtan. Unfortunately, not with this piece of junk, you know. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.